Okay, so we're going to be doing example 6 now. So we have a center drill hole, and then a drilled hole, and a tapped hole, all at the same location. So we'll go ahead and continue from where we left off. So I'm just going to edit this example 5 that we just did. I'm going to go ahead and save as, change the name to example 6, and save. So the first thing we're going to do is change our stock geometry. So we're going to do a 1.368 by 1.86 by 1.35 block. So we'll go ahead and go into our part setup. We'll go to the More tab and stock geometry. So our X length is 1.368, our Y is 1.86, and our Z is 1.35. So now that our stock is set up, we'll go ahead and go to our tool setup. So we'll go ahead and just edit this tool. Actually, we'll just leave tool 10 here. We'll go ahead and create our center drill. I'm going to call our center drill tool 5. And I'm just going to call it a drill. We can also call it a center drill. It doesn't really matter either way. Some of the different types of tools can have different features. For the simplest way of doing this, I'm just going to call it a drill. It's an 1/8 inch drill, which is also a center drill. Speeds and feeds, we call this 1500 at 5 inches per minute. For my drill, I'm going to call this tool 20. It is a 5/16 drill. I'm going to give it a speed of 2500 at 10 inches a minute. And then for my next tool, I'm going to do tool 30. And I'm going to call it tap. I'm going to call it the threading diameter in inches. When we have a thread, we have this option for a select your own thread. So basically, any thread that the software knows exists, we can pick it without having to manually type in our data values. So we could manually type in our thread diameter and threads per inch if we wanted to, or we could simply just select it from this menu. So if you click the thread icon, we can pick a 3/16 tap. So if you go and scroll over, 3/8 tap. So our thread diameter is 3/8 and our threads per inch is 16. Turn our coolant on to find a speed of 300. So now we're pretty much good to go with our tools. So now we'll go to our part programming. So this block here exists from our last program. So we'll just modify it however we want. We can see here that our drill does not break through our block, so we want to make sure we leave enough stock so that we do not penetrate all the way through our block. But we want our drill to go deep enough so that we can still tap at a 1/4 inch deep as they define out right here. So I plan on going probably 1 inch and 100 thou, or 1 inch and 1/4 inch, somewhere around that range, just enough so we don't break through. Typically you want to go as deep as you can without going too deep. So if we go 1 inch and 1/4, we'll still have 100 thou from the bottom of the tip of our drill. So that's probably the safest bet for drilling and tapping this hole. So we'll go ahead and call it our depth at 1.25, and we'll select our drill 20. Now we have this option to update our speeds and feeds, which we want to do because we defined them for our tool. When we click that, you can see that 250, the 2500 RPM fills here, and our plunge speed of 10 inches a minute will fill in right here. That's what we want. So now we can go ahead and go to next hole operation. Since we already have a specific hole location in here, we want to just ignore that for right now, and we'll insert a hole operation before that. If we insert after that, we're going to have some issues. So basically, we want to enter in our center drill, our drill, and our tap all before that location, in that order. So we've already entered our drill, so we'll go ahead and enter our tap. And we'll do a rigid tap. Basically, the way that works is a tap versus a rigid tap. Basically, a tap cycle will do one single plunge at our RPM all the way to the depth that we define. A rigid tap will allow us to do a peck. I typically like to do a peck just to add for extra chip clearance and so I can monitor it better. So we'll go ahead and do rigid tap, and we'll select our depth of probably 1 inch should be good. Depending on the lead of your tap, you may need to go deeper or shallower. If you have a bottoming tap, you can go shallower. If you don't have a bottoming tap, you may have to go deeper. Just depends on the type of tool you have. So we'll pick our tap and our peck depth. We'll do 1/4 inch. Should be plenty. So now we can see I have our drill and our tap here in this little review box. But before our first drill, we want to insert a center drill. So for this drill here, we'll insert a hole operation and a drill. And we'll just do a drill block. There's also a center drill block, but it's basically the same as a drill. Typically, you just want to do whatever's simplest. They have all these different options for types of drilling. For the most part, you're not going to use most of them. They all have different specified features, which you can look up in the help menu. But for the most part, just using the drill block by itself should be sufficient. So we'll specify our Z bottom at 50 thou, and we'll pick our tool 10. We don't need a peck depth. So now we have our center drill, our drill, and our tap. The last thing we need to do is specify our location. So you can see here, I clicked on our location block, and it automatically takes me to that block. So we're operation 4 now, block 1, and I will specify at 0.68 and 0.93. Again, like most of our examples, they call out the part 0 at the top left. I'm going to be defining this at the bottom left since these are symmetrical. It's just easier to program that way. Most devices are set up with the hard draw in the front. It's easier to zero your part that way. So we'll go ahead and specify this at 0.68 and 0.93. And when you hit enter, it tries to prompt this second location. If you just exit out of here, it'll go away. So if we go ahead and draw it, it'll draw a hole. So if we draw it again, we can see it do it one by one. You can see our center drill, our drill, and our tap. We can do it again from this view. We can actually single step this if we want to. So there's our center drill. There's our drill. And there's our tap. And if we want to be even more accurate, we can actually go back into our tool setup, go to our tool 20, and go to this More tab. You have to be on the tool number. You can't be on this tool type pad tab. You have to be on the tool number and go to the More tab and go to Advanced Tool Settings and define our drill angle. Most are typically 118 or 135. So now we draw it again. You can see our drill tip. So we can see that our drill tip to our tap tip is plenty of clearance. If this tip was up here by this tap depth, we could risk the possibility that our tap would bottom out and actually break the tap. So make sure you leave enough clearance so you don't have to worry about that. If we go into isometric, rotate it around, we can see everything looks good, and we shouldn't have any problems here. So now we can go ahead and save this out, and that example looks good. That's the end of that.